Nice to see you all, and thank you for inviting me. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'll try and tell you everything that I can. So let's start with, I'm from Hungary, but I moved to the UK about 10 years ago, and I studied history. And so my big plan was to be a historical advisor on movies because I just loved period dramas. I loved sci-fi, fantasy, and you need history for that. Everything's based on that, so it's pretty cool. But then, really, really quickly, I realized that as much as I love history, even though I can like cry on my history books if a battle goes wrong and someone dies, as they do, that really doesn't contribute to like my dream to actually work on films. So I think after a year, because I was doing film and history as a joint degree, but history was my major. So after a year, I like silently shifted towards film and started doing a lot of volunteering and basically just all kinds of traineeships and any kind of work experience I could. I started working with the London Screenwriters Festival because I was already in love with scripts. So I always knew that this is somewhere where I want to start, but I didn't really know I didn't see the whole picture, basically. So I had this idea that, okay, I understand the academic side. I can write beautiful essays about French cinema. That's really cool. But what else can I do? Okay, I understand a little bit more about screenwriting, but how does a film get into a cinema? How does anyone make anything? How are you going to see it as a viewer? And so I got a job at a cinema, which was Odeon Leicester Square. So that was pretty lucky. Got it through a friend. As you can probably guess that everyone in the whole film industry, everything goes through friends and your network and who you know, who you meet, and not because it's very, I don't know. I mean, it is a little bit small, but again, people like working with people who they know, so that's how you sort of go everywhere. And so I started working at the cinema, and that was fun because you're a broke student, but you can watch films as much as you can. Like literally have a card and you can go to any cinema you want to and you can watch anything anytime. So it's pretty fun. There were like small restrictions. And Odeon also had the biggest premieres. So that was whoa, eye-opening. And I was like, okay, so we're working on the premieres in the background. And I started seeing the PR company who was doing the premieres and the distribution companies who were coming there doing technical checks before in the cinema. So I I realized that okay, there are different people and different companies behind this, and started unraveling the chain. So okay, cinema's the end. Well, like I thought at that time. Now we know there's also TV and streamer and everything, but cinema was the main thing. It's okay, what comes before? Before there's a distribution company, and then before there's a sales agency. And I only discovered this like through experience working for them. So I left the cinema after a couple of years and went to work for this PR company who always did the premieres at OLS, which was Premiere PR, and they were one of the biggest ones. So it was really, really difficult to get in. A bunch of my colleagues literally just got through, you know, their aunties, their friends, family friends, and all of that. And I got through because I worked at the cinema before. So my boss referred me to them, and they were all very surprised, like, what, you don't have any family relations? And I was like, no, I just wanted to work here. I so wanted to do this. And then I did a couple of months there with them, and they were lovely. And it was really, really cool experience because I got to go to the BFI Film Festival, got to be on the premieres, do the press screenings, do a lot of the talks with the directors, like just be there and help with the organization as a, I don't know, like an assistant, nothing high up. So, but it was still really cool. You learn a lot from it. But I kind of realized that PR is not necessarily what I want to do. I want something a little bit more on the creative side. So I was still doing the Screenwriters Festival, and I was like, okay, well, scripts are a little bit, they have, I don't know, they draw me to them. Like, I'm drawn to the scripts a little bit more than standing in the cold on the red carpet. I mean, it's exciting for 10 times. And then the 11th time when you're standing in the rain, you're like, okay, it's not going to change my life now. Let's move on. So then, by then I knew I wanted to go to the NFTS. Sorry, so the National Film and Television School was like my biggest dream. And I applied once, didn't get in, got through the interviews, but didn't get in. Then I applied twice, got through the interviews again, didn't get into that course either. And then one of the teachers saw me at the London Screenwriters, at the London Film Festival when I was doing the PR job still. And they're like, oh, we have this new course. And he literally just interviewed me like 2 weeks before. I was like, we've got this new course. I think you're going to love it because it's everything that you want to do. And that was the distribution course. So I applied for that one and that was a success and that was great. Obviously, I didn't have the money to study at the NFTS. So I crowdfunded my course. I raised about $5,500. And then the director at the time, who was Nick Powell, and then came John Wardle. So they saw my crowdfunding, and on Christmas Eve, I got an email from them saying, we saw this, why don't you come? We'll give you a scholarship. So I was like, oh yes, now I can come, I can do this. So at the end, I finished with about 4 scholarships, but it was all a little bit hush-hush because Europeans can't get all the scholarships, and I wasn't British yet at the time. I only became British after I finished at the NFTS, but I still got a couple of the scholarships, so that was really cool. They always helped. I also worked at the NFTS a little bit just so I can support myself. And so during that time, I started interning for sales companies and distribution companies, and I went over to Picture House. I did Sundance London with them 4 times, I think, or 3 times. I don't know. It was really good. It was fun. It was another festival again. And then I worked for Picture House Entertainment, which was a distribution company. And then I worked for E1, which was a larger distribution company. And in like different capacity. So I get to learn about marketing a little bit when you like how a distribution company is marketing the films, get to learn about acquisition side a little bit about scheduling in the films into cinemas and that side as well. So I got a whole like view, like literally a whole view, because I still had my cinema experience when I was the manager at the cinema and they get to book stuff in, but I mean, I wasn't a booker, but I was just like running the cinema. And then I was on the other side from the distribution company when you try and book the cinema in and you try and agree on the rates and when you want it and which screening you want. Oh no, I don't want the matinee on Sunday. Can I have, I don't know, the Monday 3 o'clock instead? And, you know, so that was a lot of admin, but a lot of exciting admin, basically. Distribution involves a lot of admin. I don't know if everyone knows that, but it's just a bunch of admin stuff. And so I was still at the NFTS, but I was working full time doing these jobs. Not always, but most of the time, because we only had class like 3 days per week. And then we had a lot of breaks as well. So I would work from home, would work on the weekends and do all that bit. And we get some jobs at the NFTS as well. So we got an animation and a game. And so the animation I worked on became like the most successful one, I think, since that was an animation, like since all the animations in terms of like how many festivals it went to. So our participation in that was that we started working with the producers and the directors from the start. And then you had to come up with the whole festival strategy and distribution strategy. And then you took over and you got a little budget and you started sending it all over the world. And so our animation was called Inanimate and it won Cannes and then it won Annecy and MIF. And we traveled everywhere with that film. It was really cool, but like that typical school type of traveling when 5 of you are sharing a room and you've only got like a little budget, they invite the director and she gets a room and then you get to sleep in that room with her, but the whole team is there and you try and make the best of it. So it's very nice. So we did that, and same thing with the game. That one was really successful as well. So we got nominated for the best student game at the Game Awards, which is like the Oscar of games. That was pretty fun. Those guys, super talented. Now they have their own game company in Norway. So I'm very proud of them. So those were like my main projects at the NFTS. Did a couple of documentaries as well. Yeah, internships and all that. Like, it was a very hands-on 2 years. I'm not gonna ramble on. And then while I was doing all of that, because we get to have industry lecturers coming in basically every single day, someone would come in and tell you about the job they're doing. And so you just get like enlightened every day, like, oh my God, that is still that is a job, and you can do that, just that tiny little segment. Oh, wow, that is really cool. So my attention shifted from this and that. I was like, I want to do that. No, I want to do that now. I want to do all of it. How can you do everything? But I quickly realized that marketing and PR is not going to be my main area. So we'll just do that for money. We'll go towards creative stuff instead. There's less money there at the beginning. So I was all about acquisitions. And this is how I ended up in my current job, because I'm doing development now. And acquisitions and development sort of like two sides of the coin, I guess, if you look at it from that perspective, because I don't know if everyone knows, but for example, a distribution company would have an acquisition person, and they go to markets and they go to festivals and they buy stuff. And as a development person, my job at a production company is to develop the scripts and the projects we have on our slate and try and sell it to the acquisition person. So I sort of have to anticipate what they're looking for and what they're buying. And obviously I will ask them, like I will have a 20-minute Zoom call with them, and I'll be like, so what are you looking for? Oh, you're looking for YA foreign language stuff. Oh, I don't have that, but I have this one instead. And then I'll send them either a log line or a short synopsis or the script if they ask for it. So that's mainly what development does. So since I finished at the NFTS, I've basically been doing development. Yeah, I did do a little bit of marketing, but yeah, now it's development for more than a year now, at a production company called Rocliffe. And we do two things, two main strands. So one of them is that we're a production company. I'll tell you a little bit more about that, like on how it works on a daily basis and all of that. But the other side is we have screenwriting competitions. Before the pandemic, we had 4 per year, and they were live showcases, and we did it with BAFTA. So my boss founded the whole screenwriting competition and BAFTA joined, and now they're running it together. But since the pandemic, we only do 2 per year, and it happens online. And even our showcases were online, but they were like bigger success than ever before. So for example, last year we had film and we had TV comedy, and we had more than 900 applicants for the TV comedy. And it's a big deal because it's one of the most prestigious screenwriting competitions in the UK, and only British people or UK citizens or like, yeah, people who have been in the country for 5 years can apply. So it's a pretty selected one, but also it's a very, very good competition in terms of like, it's a platform for new voices. So we're literally only looking for voices. We're never looking for scripts in that. Even as a production company, it's not like we're looking for the new spec script that they have or the idea, but we're looking for the voice and what this writer might be able to do. So that's pretty cool. And a bunch of the films that we have on our slate as a production company come through from the screenwriting competition, actually. So it all feeds into each other. So that's pretty good. I'm no longer going to do most of the coordinating for the screenwriting competition because it took up a lot of my time, and we're changing a couple of things in the structure in terms of how we work, because we all work online now. And so we got someone to help to deal with that. One of our interns she stepped up now, and she's the assistant now, and she's running that side, and I get to focus on the development slate fully. And also I've got another big production job coming up from February, and I will be off for quite a few months doing that production thing as well. Production is not usually my forte, if I say that. I've done like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20, like small ones, big ones, like not that many. A bunch of them were NFTS productions. A lot of them were Hungarian productions. Well, I'm not sure we can qualify them Hungarian because Hungary is a production service country. So I was hired by the production service company, but it's like an international production. So yeah, I did a couple of those ones as well. But production is not usually where I want to like move up or focus all my energy, except this one that's coming up now, because this is about sustainability. And I'm very hyped about sustainability and what we can do here. So this is going to be the big trial, step up, all that, if you may. We did with a shorter one in December, and that wasn't entirely in sustainability capacity, but so I was in the COVID team. We were still kind of useful. We could measure up everything. We could sort of like write a report on it at the end and think about what we might be able to improve on in the future on the next production that we might have. And especially like in the COVID team, because you're aware of like a lot of the new regulations that you have to implement when you start shooting. So it was super useful. So yes. Well, first of all, I want to say that we haven't done this job yet. So I've been researching the whole topic extensively, done a couple of reports, but it's all theoretical. And this is going to be the first hands-on experience that we do. So sustainability is about like making the film industry a little bit more greener. And there are a bunch of areas where we can do that. And there are a lot of international players who started this like a long time ago. Almost all studios have policies and they group together. And depending on, like, a lot of things ride on the director and the producer. That's what like I figured out by talking to Paramount and Disney and everyone, because they all say that they've got these policies in place and they want to make everything greener. But unless the director and the producer is really dedicated to do that, that might never happen. They might just fill out the paperwork and they'll like, you know, they've done the obligation and then that's all. But if there's a director like Darren Aronofsky, for example, who's super dedicated about green filmmaking, then everything will happen. Then they look at transport, which is one of the biggest areas, and they make sure they're using hybrid flottas. They make sure they have charging points for the cars, that they like carpooling and they're grouping everyone together so that they're trying to reduce their carbon footprint. They make sure that they talk to catering, and catering is like, you check their menus and they're using seasonal vegetables, they're reducing beef. I don't know, there's a fish day, there's a vegan day, there's a vegetarian day. It's almost, you almost don't even see it if it works right, because we don't want like big riots on production saying like, I haven't got meat in a week and I can't work without meat. No, it has to be sort of seamless. So you just reduce things a little bit and you still have delicious meals, but also you serve those meals in recyclable boxes and cutleries. And these are like the small things, and everyone's always like, oh, sure, Love Island bottles. Yeah. Great, you're gonna save the earth with the bottles, and there's so much more behind it. You kind of like, you have to change your energy. What kind of energy are you using? Are you using renewable energy? And the pressure comes from everywhere, basically, to the production, to the hiring companies who are renting out the lights for you. So it is all connected in a really nice way. It's pretty nice. So if a bunch of productions are asking, for example, a renting company that, look, we'd like to use LED lights, we'd like to use solar generators and all of that, eventually they will change their output and they will have that. And some of the bigger like physical studios are changing when they're like renovating. They might think about actually putting in some green and sustainable recycling options. So that's pretty cool. And then they'll think about putting in recycling bins and all of that. And, you know, like there's so much rubbish at the end of a production, and all the kind of materials that they're using. And it's not enough that you get, excuse me, you get, I don't know, 3 different type of bins, but you also have to check, where does that go? Like, does it go to the correct landfill? And do they actually just thrash everything together and, I don't know, smash it and make it into a little square? It's gonna stay there forever. Or do they actually like select it, I don't know, burn the one that they can burn and recycle the other materials? So you have to go through the whole supply chain. You're talking to the vendors, and you also want to talk to every HOD to see how you can support their team. So you talk to the production design team and see, what kind of stuff are you building? What would you like? Do you want us to use this kind of lumber, or this kind of wood that comes from a special forest? So you know what I mean? So there's so many tiny little things, but the main ones are transport, catering, rubbish. What are the main ones? I'm forgetting something. Energy. Yeah.
And would you, sorry to interrupt you again, would you say that I suppose your focus has been sort of Central and Eastern Europe in this respect, and there's more to be done. I know I come from Bulgaria, for those of you who don't know. I know that we have bins for different things, but they get dumped together in the same, not even, you know, it's the same lorry that collects them all. So I suppose as a service industry, Hungary would be trying to comply with Hollywood studios going to shoot there, so that, you know, it can attract more productions. So is that what you're trying to develop, a sort of more awareness?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here, because a year ago we were on a production and we selected everything, for example, and then we talked to the cleaning lady and she was like, "Oh honeys, you're so sweet, we're dumping everything together anyhow." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, no, don't do that." So that was the first moment when we sort of like woke up to the fact that even though there are bins or whatever for them, it's never going to be recycled unless you make sure it gets recycled properly, and you make sure like facilities knows about this, and they invite, like, they, I don't know, they hire the right collection company who will destroy everything. And so yes, we've been trying to talk to the Hungarian Film Institute as well. They're super nice about this. They just wake up to the idea as well that Hungary is sort of a little bit behind compared to Germany, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, even Slovakia, we're a little bit behind, let's say. All the others sort of started doing it, and there's an external pressure, because here comes Universal shooting their next film, here comes Paramount, and they're like, okay, I want this to be done. They're working on their own policies. So they're working by the PGA, which is the one that they use in America. Everyone is part of it, Disney, Paramount, all of them. And they have their calculator, you know, they've got the paperwork, they have to do it. And then they're looking for someone who will do it for them on the ground. And here we are, and we don't have everything ready. Well, like, we don't have anything ready for them basically, and we have to like sort the new vendors, or talk to the current vendors that they like using, because we don't want to change all that bit, but like we have to convince people to change their habits. PGA Green is the green production guide. This is what the one that they use in America, and they have a calculator, they have a lot of case studies. They're pretty cool. They're a big organization doing sustainable filmmaking, basically.
Sure, and you wanted to talk a little bit more about development in your slate.
I mean, if people are interested in what happens in a production company when you're trying to develop stuff, I guess. So we have about 10, 15 films, depending on, I don't know, time, where we are with them. These films can come in different stages. Sometimes they come in at an idea stage. Sometimes we engage a writer who sent us a spec script. Well, that's very rare, to be honest, because we don't accept unsolicited materials. But sometimes an agent will send me a script that I read and I really like, and we'll be like, okay, we'll take out a shopping agreement on that. So that means if we really like the spec script, the shopping agreement will be for about 6 months, and it means we have the exclusive rights to to go to, for example, Netflix or Paramount or Amazon and try and say like, look, we've got this project. Are you interested? So we've got these ones, and basically we've got different type of genres. So we have documentary, animation, drama, a lot of sci-fi. We're quite big on genre, because I don't know how much you're reading, but at the moment, but like genre is really going up during the pandemic. A lot of people are watching it, and by genre I mean horror, sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, you know, everything that you can group in that. So we have like 4 sci-fis, horror sci-fis on our slate now, which is very cool because I'm a super big sci-fi fan. Although I do have to put that aside sometimes. So when you work on something as a development exec, it's not necessarily about your own personal taste, but you're basically doing a market analysis, and you see you'll try and see who the audience is for it and how you can position the whole project and who you can sell it to. So there's a lot of admin behind it as well. So my day would look like I do a lot of emails. I do a bunch of reading if I can. Scripts that the agent sent me. I will do a big database of, I'm trying to like build up financiers and production companies who can be potential co-production partners. And then I do a market analysis for each of our projects and try and match them with the right companies, and I'll come up with a list of companies who I should send it to, and then you set up meetings with them. And so this is mainly what we do in development. You talk to writers, directors a lot when you're trying to attach cast. You talk to agents to see who have good new voices and new writers. You talk to acquisition people and other development people at different companies, trying to see what they might want from you, what you can give them, how you can collaborate. You do a lot of applications, a bunch of public funding applications, so Slate funding applications, Creative Europe, BFI. We do Screen Ireland as well, and Northern Ireland, because my boss is half Irish. So we do a lot of those ones as well. That helps because, I mean, you have to finance your slate somehow, and development needs a lot of money because you're paying your writer, you're paying your script editor, you potentially be paying a line producer to draw up an initial budget for you, and then you sort of go back and work on the script again based on that as well. You might cut some of the scenes because you realize, oh my God, my budget is up to 3 million. This can only be 1.5. Let's cut all the extras and locations and do this in the forest now. I don't know. So yeah, so this is the kind of stuff that we do. And I work a lot with my boss, and it all happens on Zoom. So my eyes get very tired at the end of the day.
Excellent. That's a very good overview. And before I open up to questions from the audience, how has your work changed? I mean, you mentioned the pandemic quite a few times.
Yeah.
In terms of how you sort of source your materials and your new projects, in terms of, as you said, what is being sought after, what do you think are some of the challenges and some of the current opportunities that weren't available before, perhaps?
Sure. Oh God, there's loads I could say, I guess. Which one to start with? A big one is the markets and festivals. They're all online now. So as a producer, you'd go to, let's say, the main ones. You'd go to Berlin, Cannes, potentially Venice, maybe Locarno. If you have animation, you'd go to Annecy. Depending on if you're rich, you go to the American film market. And you might go to TIFF. These are like kind of like the big ones. There's the Rome market as well, or Hong Kong, but we rarely do that because it's a little bit far away and we're not that big. We're not a big company, so it's all online now. And Sundance, yeah, but we don't tend to not go to Sundance either because it's a little bit, again, quite expensive. So mainly do the European ones. If you're a distribution company, you definitely go. Sorry, just saw that in the chat. So all of that changed now, and I'm not sure as a production company, it's for the best for us. So it's all about meeting people and doing it in person. and as good as it can like be online, you kind of miss that. There's so many like chance meetings that you have when you're on a market. You just bump into someone in Cannes, and then they take you to the next party, and there you bump into someone, and sort of like then you make your sale, and it's not necessarily planned out. So it's a lot harder when you try and do it online. It feels a little bit forced as well. I think from a distribution and sales perspective, it kind of works to a certain degree. You can still screen the stuff. You can still view those films. As an acquisition person, you have a special pass and you're able to view the content. So it's absolutely fine. As a producer, if I were there, or like if I, as a development exec, if I were there at a market, I'd get a pass and I would get to see a lot of films. But because it's online now, I won't. And that actually hinders my job a little bit in terms of like, I should be aware of everything that's out on the market and sort of know who's making what, who's selling what, and why they're buying it. But it's a lot harder now. I mean, personally, I find it hard to like do 12-hour days on Zoom and try and pitch your project. It's much nicer when you have a cocktail. But so that's a big deal, actually. And I hear that a lot from a distribution sales friends as well, that they're actually keeping all the good content for the world when they open up again. So they're selling stuff now, obviously, and all of that, but the big ones are that they're not releasing the big ones. Do you know what I mean? Like they all keep it under the table and they're not really going to talk about it, and they're waiting for the moment when they can finally be like, here's my biggest project, buy this one. But then again, you hear different things as well. So, I mean, it's better for independent filmmakers now, because if they have had their film finished right before or during the pandemic, they can try and sell it, because everyone needs content. They have to fill their hours. So that's a good thing, I guess. I do read a lot of the industry news, and you try and sort of like grasp the audience's taste and what they like. And I mean, it's a fine balance, because there's a lot of marketing push behind things and a lot of PR marketing and PR spend on these things, especially online, and you don't necessarily know if it's just a good campaign or people actually loved it. So you kind of have to like talk to a bunch of other people as well. It's like, oh, did you also see this? And like, yeah, okay, cool. And then you grasp the audience's taste. Like I had a very strange encounter, and it was super funny actually. A family friend who's about 60 years old, a very established businessman with 2 little kids, and he comes to me and says like, "Hi Sophie, I just watched this new series on Netflix called Bridget. And I was like, Bridgerton? It's like, yeah, Bridgerton. And I was like, you watched this? I'm like, you're totally not the audience for this. I would think you're like, I don't know, Top Gear man. You'll be somewhere watching an action movie, watching cars, whatever, all the stereotypes you can imagine." And he's like, yes, we binged it in a day. I'm like, okay. Clearly, Netflix is not lying about Bridgerton being the biggest, most well-viewed series they had so far. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So you kind of have to talk to your peers and friends, and yeah. I mean, I talk to my hairdresser about what they watch. I try and talk to everyone about what they watch and how they watch it. And do they like watch trailers? Why do they go to the cinema and all that bit? Because you try and understand the audience. Because as much as we can learn from, articles, that's not necessarily real. Yeah. So what else changed? It changed. It's a lot harder to do productions. You obviously can't necessarily cross countries. A smaller team can come here. As a production service company, it was very difficult. They had to come up with all kinds of guidelines that they really quickly established the whole new COVID guideline section, and it's all safe now. So I think Hungary was one of the first ones that was up and running and haven't really stopped actually. Maybe they stopped for a month until they figured it out, but it's they're super booked still. It's all happening. It's a lot harder though, but is still happening. So that's a big deal. And when you're on set, you have to wear all these masks, and that's very difficult, and it creates a lot of rubbish. So from a sustainable point of view, that's not great. But we trialed out a recyclable face shield for the makeup team and the costume team, and they loved it. They said it's really nice, comfortable. It doesn't scratch. So they like it much better than the previous one, because that will scratch after a day and then you have to throw it away. And again, just a bunch of rubbish.